It's a pleasure to welcome you all back to the weekly webinar. And today's subject is near and dear to all of us, food. We also will have to get into our mindset and the power of positive thinking, focus in greater depth at another time. If we realize that we all have this issue about detoxifying, we've covered this in previous meetings, and so you understand that the concept F.I.G.H.T came out of really the time I read the book called The Autoimmune Epidemic by Donna Jackson Nakazawa. And when you read that book, you'll understand why having a simple acronym with two F's, one for food, one for focus, which is the power of your mind, meditation, you can change your genes. Very exciting. I for infection, G for genetics, H heavy metals and hormones, T is toxins. So if we talk food, we're going to have to realize that it is now clear that our enemy is the fork, and what you put on the end of your fork determines how long you will live. So part of it is because we have disturbed the internal intestinal flora, which means that I'm stuck advising people today to get acidophilus, make it affordable because you're going to be on it every day, and I haven't found a single acidophilus that's worth $200 a bottle because you're going to have to be on it forever, although there's no question whether your child is having eczema or allergies or asthma. You need to know that part of it is the overload of the toxins in our body, which are coming from eating the same food each day. And when you don't have the healthy intestinal flora, what will happen is that you will wind up with the food getting into the bloodstream before it's been entirely processed, because the flora in your intestinal tract actually help you break the food down to usable molecules, and if it's not broken down, it's unusable, and you will become sensitized to milk and wheat, which we have an epidemic of that today. So at future webinars, we'll go further into focus and into infection and genetics and heavy metals, hormones, and toxins. But today, food is what's really on today's agenda to discuss. Now, we can make a joke of the fact that we all sit down with the best of intentions when we order, but we don't stop with the salad. We go right on into the desserts. We always have some comfort food, and it's unfortunately killing us. So to pretend that a potato chip is a vegetable is not really very healthy, and you're kidding yourself. When you get Food Inc., and watch the movie, Netflix will happily send it to you. Any store can get it. You will start to eat differently, I believe, because you will see that because we have subsidized the agriculture in this country, we've turned things topsy-turvy so that people can eat for $1 a hamburger for their kid, whereas to give the kid something healthy, some actual vegetable, is going to cost them $2 just to buy it in the store. So the net result is, because we have disturbed the normal economics, we run this country on wheat, corn, and soy. And that means that even if this cow that would stay healthy if it was fed a significant amount of its diet from grass, which it was designed to eat, but currently we fatten these animals on the corn, and we have the proof in this movie that that sets the stage for the cow to not have a healthy environment inside, and it has led to the death of many people suddenly with these various forms of E. coli infection. So we do know that Time magazine actually put on the cover the real cost of cheap food, because you've got cheap food, and it is actually going to be paid for when you have your heart transplant, your bypass, your hip replacement, etc. Because if we begin to understand that the food that is being processed in these factories is really not food, it's calories. And food has the ability to talk to your genes, and it has the ability to lower the level of inflammation so that you don't have to have Big Pharma sell you a drug for inflammation like Vioxx that wound up killing so many people, because we all know today that inflammation is contributing to cancer and Alzheimer's and premature aging, but inflammation is directly tied to what you put on the end of your fork. And it's kind of hard to understand that reality is that the animal that you're eating, if it's beef or chicken, has not been fed what it was intended to eat, and that has disturbed the quality of that food. So it is not that I'm making a requirement for people to eat vegetarian. If you choose to do so, obviously we love you for it. It's a little complicated to do it intelligently, but I don't want people to think that the only path to health is through vegetarianism. And it's not entirely required that you go to entirely raw organic food, but we have proven at places like the Hippocrates Institute in Florida that you can really help many people who otherwise face death with serious degenerative disease by making an extreme change in their diet. So let's make it very clear. Let your food be your medicine is the concept that we're talking about here. But if the food that you're eating is really not food, I'll call it non-food, artificial food, phony food, toxic food. And this link will take you to Food Matters, and it will bring you into the full understanding that when you give in and have high fructose corn syrup on any beverage that you're drinking, it's accelerating your aging and giving you obesity and contributing to low levels of inflammation. And so with all this knowledge out there between Food Inc. and Food Matters, you would think that something would break loose and we wouldn't have every oncologist in this country today, when you walk in with a terminal cancer, telling you that whatever you eat has no effect at all. That is so sad, and we'll get into that more. So high fructose is not our friend. And it's not just the mercury, it is that you're contributing to this picture of three foods running the entire market. Those, again, are the soy and the corn and the wheat. And we know today that 30% of people provably will have autoantibodies that tie into what we call celiac disease or gluten sensitivity. And those people are not going to be healthy unless they learn how to live on buckwheat and amaranth and triticale and quinoa, etc. So if we have all this knowledge then that our diet's not working, how are you going to be able to get the diet that is optimal for you? And that's where we have a lot of work to do. It's not just that we can find arsenic in our rice. We're going to find toxins of any kind, no matter where you are on Earth, because remember, we burn coal by the ton, and we have to make chlorine by the ton for swimming pools. And when we make things, we dump things in the air. So you can't burn coal without poisoning the planet. So we can be lucky. Yes, I'm happy that at age 75 I feel fantastic, but my cost of feeling fantastic is extremely high. And we're going to try to have you realize that. Because I take so many supplements that will protect me against the toxins that are in my food, I've been on daily oral chelation every single day for at least the last 20 years. And before that, it was intravenous chelation, but it changed my life. I couldn't walk up a flight of steps, and after the first intravenous chelations, 8 of them, some 35 years ago. I could actually run up a mountain and wear out a 2-year-old Irish setter. So I like the idea. The simple thing is get the lead out, get the toxins out. But that's only a piece of the puzzle. I've got to get the right things into you. And as you go through some of these slides, you're going to see that I wrote a book called The Omega-3 Miracle, and you're going to understand that we as humans are not designed to live on exclusively omega-6. We should have not 50 times more omega-6 than we have omega-3, but we'll get into that further. Now we're touching on another complex subject. Jeffrey Smith I have interviewed at length. He's done an incredible job of waking us up to the danger of genetically modifying foods. Now this is going to be hotly debated, and there are going to be very good people who will differ with me radically and swear that this is the only way we can feed the planet, so we're entitled to have a difference of opinion. But it's important to know that these stomach lesions and the death of these animals, which is so sad because in India we've had a huge problem of suicide, farmers committing suicide because the Monsanto food that was promised to be so great, the seeds, they are at the mercy of Monsanto. They have to buy. Monsanto will not allow you to own your own seed. And the bottom line is that they have found that their water buffalo die very often, just as the animals, the test animals that are all described in these books. So millions against Monsanto. Can we stop them? Yes, if we just make it clear to the stores that we will not buy genetically modified food. Monsanto would have to go away no matter how big somebody is. Look what's happening to Toyota. If somebody makes a serious mistake, and these folks have made a serious mistake, telling us that we need to have genetically modified food. So this is only a piece of the problem. But why am I sitting here so upset about it? Because we're telling you that the genetically modified foods, if you just avoid corn, soy, cottonseed, and canola, you've got a chance to avoid what they introduce in your body, which is a pesticide. In other words, they told the farmer you won't have to buy pesticide because the seed, when it sprouts, is going to deliver in the food that is actually being grown a pesticide called Bacillus thuringiensis, which we assure you our research shows is not safe and is changing the internal milieu of your body so you don't have all the acidophilus you need, which is why I started this presentation out saying go to the health food store, buy acidophilus for you and your loved ones and your family, and assume that even though if you buy yogurt, the yogurt you're buying is all too often a part of a huge problem. It's called farming, which has been turned into factories, and you're getting often a milk that is not a food because the cow wasn't fed anything that was healthy. We have the documentation to prove that when you feed the animal intelligently, you are safe to have your beef. I'm not saying you need to have a steak every day, but your steak and your chicken, instead of being harmful, can be helpful if we respect the health of the animal the way I'm hoping to help you respect the health of your body and how it relates to the wrong foods that we're running America on. And the more wrong it is, the more we have mental disease and cancer and heart disease and disabling autoimmune disease. And so we're going to wind up with the government is going to buy all of us a drug of some kind so we can get it at the drugstore so we can afford $100 and $200 and $500 a month drugs to mask, not cure why we have these autoimmune and cancers and heart disease and arthritis. It doesn't cure it. It's masking. And so they make them so expensive. So now we, the taxpayer, are going to help. Well, obviously, it will lead to what we're now seeing today happening in the news when we see that there are countries like Greece who are unable to keep their country on a solid basis. So the whole problem can be the money becomes worthless. So we need to get some answers to keep our people healthy and productive. We can't all be living in the hospital the way they say that if you live to 80, 1 out of 2 of us will have dementia or Alzheimer's. And today they're now saying that although we've always had heart disease as the leading cause of death, they think this next couple of years cancer could become number 1, so heart disease would be relegated to being number 2 cause of death. So the world, according to Monsanto, is to teach you that these allergies that we're now having, these epidemic of asthma and eczema and all these children who can't learn and have these temper outbursts, there's a reason for it. We're not giving the human body the nutrients it needs to run on. So mice fed the Bacillus thuringiensis toxin, the one that's in all of this GM food, they will absolutely show lesions. Now, what kind of a lesion? Well, a proliferative lesion is a step 1 toward being a pre-cancer situation. And, of course, colon cancer today is a number 2 leading cause of cancer death. So we try to fix some food, and we have David Ewan Duncan, who was actually the guinea pig for the National Geographic when they did the special called Chemicals Within Us, which I have put on my website, GordonResearch.com, because these pictures may help you follow through with a resolution to change what you eat and find organic food no matter how much effort it seems to take. You can often go on the internet and look for organic food, and you will find that, amazingly enough, there is a farmer's market around you somewhere. But we're trying to point out in these pictures that the phthalates, which are now 10,000 times higher in every human being, that's from these fact that our canned goods have got bisphenol A, and we wrap our food in plastic. These things are building up in our tissue, just like we drink from those soft styrene cups. The styrene is in your blood a couple of minutes later, and it starts to be part of your body. Now, is that a problem? Well, we're quite convinced that phthalates and the polybrominated diphenyl ethers, the flame retardants, are tied into cancer and thyroid disease and many, many other problems. And as you get into seeing these pictures, you'll understand that we have the toxins, and so we need to know, well, forget the toxins. What do I eat? What's the answer? Where do I go? The Environmental Working Group is an excellent source for you to get an understanding of all of these toxins so that you will be motivated, even if you have to pay twice the cost to buy your food. It sounds like it is really impossible because we're all having so much trouble keeping above water. But at the same time, we have to recognize that we've been seduced by government-subsidized foods, and we're so used to cheap foods that we don't understand that when we get hit with a diagnosis of brain cancer, which we will discuss what happened to Dr. David Servin Schreiber, MD, PhD, in his book Anti-Cancer, how all this ties together to the epidemic, because if you don't know somebody who's diabetic or who has cancer or who's facing heart surgery or who can't walk because they need a joint replaced, there's a relationship between the perfluorooctanic acid, that would be one of the Teflon materials that we got seduced into cooking our food on, but now we can prove that in a nation that is tired and obese, a lot of us go to our doctor and say, gee, doc, I'm so tired that I can't get out of bed, gaining weight, no matter what. In the simple world before all these toxins, you might have thought thyroid was behind your problem, but the doctor does the wrong tests, and he tells you it's not your thyroid. But we do know that, for example, at least 40% of all young men today will probably never father their own child. And many married couples today have to go see the local reproductive specialist because the sperm don't have the energy. And there's a relationship then between these levels of these toxins in our body and these health problems we're having and the food this country runs on. So the Teflon chemical is absolutely contributing to a failure of our liver to deal with the other toxins, a failure of our thyroid to give us the energy that we need, and the immune system. So these Teflon-related things are even causing children to have elevated cholesterol levels. So now they want to put our children on statins, which is so pathetic. Absolutely, it is an act of virtually fraudulent proportions to tell people that this stuff is the answer to heart disease when they manipulate the numbers and play games with the numbers. I think it's best if we just stop heart attacks, as I've been lucky enough to do. In some 35 years, we've stopped heart attacks in my patients, not just said, oh, they're 5% less or 10% less. Omega-3 alone stops about 50% of sudden death. So obviously we can put good stuff in. And obviously, working with Longevity Plus, I've tried to help them have the best cutting-edge supplements from a unique vitamin C that no one else has anything like it, to an extremely exciting children's formula, E3MV, that is documented to do things, taking a school that they were going to close down and letting this school become one of the leading schools in Leavenworth, Kansas, by giving away for E3MV twice a day to the children, because the children aren't getting fresh fruits and vegetables, and they give you polyphenols. And polyphenols are part of the essential nutrients that we're just not getting in our diet. So if you go to Google and you want to figure out what food should I eat, why don't you put in the word food allergy testing and read. If you put in that word, you'll have 10 million hits. And obviously, I, having practiced medicine for over 50 years, spending over $2 million in the last 15 years alone, going to conferences, sitting in the front row, trying to figure out, is there one test that really will answer the question? Well, to put it in a nutshell, I like ALCAT, I like ELISA, I like IG. I'll show you a bunch of tests. I like Sage. This is sagelab.com. But our problem is two-sided. Many of us don't have the money to do these tests. And not any one of the tests has ever been found to be bulletproof. Some of the tests, if you're already smart enough to realize that milk was killing you and you've stopped eating the milk, the test will come back and tell you you're not reacting to it, and you'll say, oh, I'll go back eating milk, so you could be fooled. There are other complexities. But a lot of people today, myself included, are so busy that if I teach you how to solve the problem and figure this out like you're a Sherlock Holmes and empower you with the right books so that you know how to figure out which foods you are absolutely being killed by, because there's pieces of a puzzle. There's a book called The Pulse Test by Coco, head of allergy at Columbia University Medical School. No one in organized medicine is going to tell you about the book, and it's $7. But he says if your pulse is 60 and you eat a food and the pulse goes up by more than 10%, it tells you, if you chant the pulse after eating, that there was something in that food that you probably didn't agree with. But there's other tests, and I'm going to mention the book called Clean. I'm going to mention a lot of books today because I've got to empower you to understand that a lot of you are going to be told by your doctor that food allergy is a myth, and then they'll switch around and say, well, maybe it's food intolerance. So intolerance might be another better word because it's not true allergy often, but it can give you hypertension, and it can wind up with giving you inflammation. It can wind up with helping you be diabetic. So eating the wrong food can give you everything from ulcerative colitis to depression to a piece of the puzzle in autism. In other words, let's make it simple. If you buy a car and it was meant to run on diesel and you pull in somewhere and put the wrong fuel, you won't be surprised if you don't get more than a block. Well, your body is almost the same way, but we all have this problem. We're different, and so it isn't easy to give you a single answer that is the optimal, because some of you don't feel that good if you stay on, say, just fruit. You're always hungry or something. And yet, across the board, Bob Atkins was my friend, and we certainly applaud him for having raised the issue that changing the diet can have profound effects on people, but I never would eat his diet because I have a different focus in my life. I'm focused on how I want to be as sharp as my friend, the Nobel Prize winner, Linus Pauling, was when he was 91. I want to be like that, which is why I spent a lot of effort to perfect bioenergy C to do things that no other vitamin C did, because other forms of vitamin C I couldn't take in big quantities. But getting down to this thing, what are we going to do to figure the best test? Well, there are lots of really good tests. And if we do a good test, one that you will have some confidence in, then perhaps it will be enough to cause you to change your buying habits and learn how to cook buckwheat, which is rhubarb, and get all wheat out of your diet. But that's not easy. And so it isn't that I dislike or don't or like any one of these tests. I need tests that I can put in front of you that will cause you to choose to make a major departure in what you're eating, because you wouldn't be listening to me today if you didn't need an improvement in your health. And I don't care if that's mental health, because I am able to practice orthomolecular psychiatry. I've seen all the schizophrenics in Northern California. I've seen all the depression. I know how to deal with mental illness. And, of course, today they came out with the new guidelines for mental illness that are going to have adverse effects on many, many people, I assure you, because although they did mention that maybe omega-3 has something to do with some of the mental illness we're seeing in our country, believe me, it's all a new game to put more people on more drugs, and these drugs, like they're giving our children when they totally mistakenly say, because they have outbursts of temper that are uncontrollable, they'll call it some kind of manic disorder, and they'll wind up putting them on seriously poisonous drugs that will give them diabetes and or cancer. And they will never, ever try to fix the cause. So that's why I'm teaching you today F.I.G.H.T, and in other weeks we'll do the I and the G and the H and the TT, but today we're on one of the F's, the food. So Dr. Wright is a good friend of mine. He's a really famous doctor. He's written, he and I are on the same page. All of his books and I are all on the same page. And he's got a very good laboratory that he helps consult with, and they do IgG4 and IgE. And I'm making this point only because some of our food allergy reactions don't happen 15 minutes after you drink the milk or eat the chicken. Some of them take 24 to 72 hours to really manifest. So sometimes an impossible headache pattern, or a person with explosive uncontrolled diarrhea, as you will find in one of the books that we're going to have you look at, could do all of these tests and never figure out what was causing the explosive diarrhea until we empowered him with a book called Clean, How to Get a Diet That You Wouldn't Be Reacting To, or one by Jeff Bland, 20-Day Rejuvenation Diet, or a new one, Anti-Cancer, A New Way of Life. If we can get you on a neutral diet for a while so your body is not being brought down to a unhealthy level of functioning because you're consuming a food that you haven't even suspected is giving you depression, or is giving you low-level fevers, or is raising your cholesterol, or raising your triglyceride, or increasing your inflammation so your knee is giving out on you, or your daughter's being called to have lupus and your kid's got asthma because you didn't know which food to stop. So these are some of the things that we can find in some people. It was the lime or the coconut, or it was that's why I'm putting these in front of you. But Jeff Bland wrote this book to try to teach you that there is a 20-day rejuvenation. And it's just the only reason I mentioned the book. There's hundreds of books. It's because it tells you essentially, stop eating anything that's on your shelf. Walk into a health food store and buy foods, whether it's amaranth or triticale or kohlrabi or whatever, but foods to make it easy to understand. If it's a food you have not consumed in the last 4 to 6 months, it probably will fit very well in what I'm trying to help you do. I'm trying to have you eat for a period of time foods that your body has not become sensitized to because you haven't got the right acidophilus in your body and you don't feed them with the right fiber, and it just goes on and on. You can be born with lactase taste deficiency, so that explains why so many people shouldn't be on dairy. But the dairy problem is much deeper than just that, and we'll get into that in a moment. On the top of this slide, there's a little mention about the Sage Medical Laboratory. And I bring this up because they have gone another step further, and the gentleman is from Harvard, and he's very bright, that developed this test, and it is covered by insurance. And I like tests, if you get them, that are covered by insurance, because they give you more belief in how important it is for you to stop something. You see, the weakness of the test is that, as you will find, that let's say that we test you and you spend $1,200 and it comes back and says you have to be off 10 foods, and you stop those 10. You really do it. Now, stopping 10 foods really means you need to have a company that will send you some suggested diets that have eliminated those 10 foods. But let's say we missed one food that we didn't know you were sensitive to, lime or anything, something, and you continue getting that. Then, although you're half improved and you say, gee, doc, I think I'm better, my blood pressure, which used to be really high, is down a lot, or my blood sugar is much easier to maintain, and I'm not as depressed, or my energy's gone, or I'm not getting every cold that comes along, or whatever, or my eczema is clearing up. So you could like me, but I still haven't gotten as far as it could have gone, but I've got you on the right road. So that's why this F.I.G.H.T program is important, because if you have enough knowledge to find out whether you are a diesel or you run on kerosene or maybe you run on water, I mean, we need to help you get the right diet, because all these diseases on the top of it are known to be tied to consuming the wrong food. See, it gets tricky, though, because the last set it said IgG4 and IgE. So the problem is you can be told that you've done allergy testing, and you can spend $1,000 on it, and it missed 3 foods that you're sensitive to, which is why sometimes the slow way, which we'll mention now, the slow way is to buy some foods that you have not eaten very often, perfectly you haven't touched in 4 to 6 months, and try to understand. You blow everything out the water if you cheat. And let's say that I get you to really do all this, and you're 9 days into it, your blood pressure is great, and your depression is gone, and your skin has stopped itching, and you think I'm a genius. So you, on the 10th or 11th day, you say, oh, well, see, I'm doing so good, I'm going to just cheat this one day. You go back and put the food in that you had been very intelligent to stop, and you will slide right back into all the mess. And it will take you out of ever having the health you want. So I'm glad that Andy Weil has a website, and Dr. Weil is certainly on the front cover of Time magazine, and he's saying essentially what I'm saying here. He's saying the only reliable approach to determine which foods you're intolerant of is to use avoidance, which means you don't get that food, you don't touch it. And then you get a provocative test, which means after you've been really good, and you're now feeling good, your blood pressure is great, or your blood sugar is perfect, or your depression is gone, or your skin rash is gone, or your kid's acting normally, you go ahead and take one new food that you used to eat. Could be wheat, could be the milk, could be soy. And then you take, and we tell you in the book Clean how to keep a little diary and see what happens, because you don't know, just because nothing happens, if you don't start wheezing that day, that doesn't mean it wasn't poisoning you. You have to keep notes for about 2 or 3 days. But anyhow, we have to understand that people are beginning to be aware that gluten-free is now important. And I'm putting the word polyphenol content up on this chart in front of you for a specific reason, because polyphenol are some of the useful nutrients that we don't get when we have no fresh fruits and vegetables in our children. So I'm trying to be sure that we put in front of you this knowledge so you don't mind to learn. Quinoa is really what the Incas ran their whole civilization on, and it tastes great. And buckwheat doesn't make an easy way to make bread, but the point is we have to make the effort, or you are not going to have a very high level of health, because remember, the most conservative numbers I can give you is that 30% of all people are not going to reach their maximum intended useful lifespan, which is 120, enjoying optimal health, that's in charge of your faculties, without having to be on drugs for your arthritis or your cancer. You're not going to reach it unless you find for you what is your optimal diet. And so that's why we're spending a lot of time on this really crucial issue. But gluten-free is increasingly a big part of the stores, and I want to tell you that there is lousy gluten-free food out there and good food, just like I'm trying to make the point. If you actually have somebody who raised that cow and you slaughter it and you own half of that cow, that beef, when it's raised on grass, has a totally different impact on your body's inflammation. And I can say that unequivocally because I wrote the book, The Omega-3 Miracle, and I really understand that the cheap omega-6 that are in our canola and our corn oil and all the stuff that we get, these oils are inflammatory unless there's enough omega-3 to keep them in reasonable balance. And in America, there isn't any reasonable balance because we have fed our animals with the wrong foods, that the animal was not designed. And the food that you eat when you have that chicken or pork or beef is a reflection of that, just like I don't like farm-fed fish because they were not meant to be fed what they're being fed on, and it isn't giving you the benefits that I'm trying to do when we treat serious disease. Bad neck, you can't go. They send you a neurologist. He thinks, oh, there's pinched neck. We're going to have to operate on it. Nonsense. We can prove that you take 8, 9, 10 of the omega-3 capsules a day for a period of 1, 2, 3 months, and a lot of the pain that would have led you to go through surgery for your pinched nerve goes away when you stop the inflammation by trying to fight back by giving you the omega-3s. But obviously, if I give you really good omega-3s, and I've obviously done an infomercial on it, and I've done a lot of work on omega-3s, if you learn that omega-3s are defeated by you going back and throwing all the wrong oil on, you've got to spend the money to get virgin olive oil. You've got to understand there's a reason for each step, and these steps will be more in the books we'll be getting to. I started out by pushing for the idea that we have to use acidophilus, and now I'm telling you that you need Beyond Fiber. There's no fiber like it in the world, and it will give the healthy flora in your intestine actually a competitive advantage, so they can help overcome the yeast and the candida that we find in everybody with diabetes and lots of other people also. So dysbiosis is what we're talking about now, and it is epidemic in this country. You can't have a healthy intestinal flora if you are eating GMO food, because GMO food puts a pesticide into you, even if you raised all your other food pesticide-free, which you can't, because there is no place you can escape all of the chemicals I am criticizing here. So if we look at the major causes of dysbiosis, will be stress, diets of poor quality. See, a lot of you think you're eating intelligently. I'm here to tell you that you're not, unless you are raising your own food and or you have your own organic farmer that you meet once a week, and he gives you most of the food that you're producing. So we're trying to have you understand that food allergies and sensitivities, I'm making such a big deal out of it. People have all these health problems from cancer, and your oncologist from the biggest universities have not one word in their guidelines of how to treat your tumor that makes them even believe that nutrition has anything to do with it. And I will show you a new way of life with an anti-cancer diet coming up. So try to understand that I've listed on here intestinal infection, and I can prove we simply send your stool to good laboratories, and they will test and find that you have unhealthy E. coli or Giardia or parasite or something else. And it turns out parasites, when everybody has seen you, even my best doctors, remember I have 2,000 doctors I talk to daily by email. That's called my F.I.G.H.T group. And remember, I'm trying to move the database that I've typed for 5 years to educate these 2,000 health professionals it was a little technical, and I'm trying to get that cleaned up so that you go and can go and will always go to fightforyourhealth.com using the number 4, not the word 4, and that you will be able to find some of these so you can read it and stay informed, because we are in the middle of a complete healthcare crisis in this country. Yesterday, some of the top experts on antibiotics came out and said, we essentially are not going to be able to do surgery on people. We have seen no answer to the antibiotic resistance that is normally taking 100,000 people's lives who enter a hospital for some procedure and die with antibiotic resistance. But they said it's just getting started. They see no hope that the current crop of antibiotics can even hope to deal with these infections, which is why on another one of our webinars, we'll teach you why ACS 200 needs to be stockpiled in your home so that you have enough, because the shelf life of the silver carried only by Longevity Plus, called ACS 200, has a shelf life of at least 5 years. And they've just banned the colloidal silver products in Europe. And with Senator John McCain out now apparently to take away all your rights by attempting to undo the Dietary Supplement Health Education Act, DSHEA, so that many of the supplements that you now are able to buy under John McCain's new bill, just introduced, you won't have the right to buy them. So we need to have you learn that Candida is in our population, and this is a simple questionnaire that you can fill out yourself that will help you understand that if you're spaced out or you're losing your memory, or that some foods trigger symptoms, that often it's Candida behind it all. And the ACS silver is able to absolutely even handle Lyme disease. But here I'm tying it in the area of food, because if I can have the bad guys that are in your intestinal, which we can grow from a fecal specimen, we can find the names of what is the predominant bacteria in you, but we could never measure everything in you because we have so many organisms in your mouth alone that we've never been able to get the names of all of them. And we know that what grows in your mouth actually winds up being inside of your body, because it doesn't stay in the mouth. It goes through and around the tooth. And next thing you know, it's picked up by the capillaries. And we find when people are dead that the plaque on their artery grows, and it always grows. Infections, and one of the sources of those infections is your mouth, so I hold the silver in my mouth to 2 months before I swallow. But when you do that, you are going to be killing all. The silver isn't so smart that it can just kill the bad guys. That's one of the reasons I say take the acidophilus and put the good guys back in each day. And so it is simply like you pull out all the dandelions, but in pulling out the dandelions, you lose some of the lawn, and so you have to continuously be replanting. And I see no problem with that, because I turn people's lives around, and the next step beyond that is to do specialized treatments called oxidative therapies with 100-gram vitamin C, or hyperbaric oxygen, or ultraviolet blood with ozone treatments that can even be stronger than the silver, because the silver gives you the ability to keep these bad guys down daily over a lifetime without turning blue. There's no side effect. It's safe. But at the same time, it's clear that if you don't stay on them, we have learned, for example, that many people with heart disease, their disease seems to be tied to things like chlamydia, which is very common in 70, 80% of all people today, like cytomegalic virus and Coxsackie, and across the board we find these infections, Candida, are in everybody. So what we want to do is realize that Dr. Younger, I think he did a good job. He's doing the same kind of work that our friend is doing with his diabesity, and you're going to find that we can take Mark Hyman's book and almost put the two of them together, but I liked pieces of what Alexandro Younger did in his book, because he takes a simple example of somebody who still had explosive diarrhea, had done all the food allergy tests, had the money, and still was having these episodes, and only when he got on a really clean diet, which I repeat could be the 20-day rejuvenation, just a totally clean diet, then when he introduced a one egg salad sandwich, within minutes he had explosive diarrhea, and he now had his own research prove to him what food he had to get rid of. That's one of the reasons, along with many other, because Dr. Younger is teaching people that all of these illnesses that we're talking about, too many colds, allergies, hay fever, weight that won't come off, restless nights, indigestion, irritable bowel, itchy skin, acne, skin, depression, anxiety, fatigue, children that can't learn, is all tied to the need to restore the body's ability to heal itself. And he brings in very powerfully the importance of meditation and the importance of getting the toxins out of your body. And amazingly enough, he does not know anything about the unique zeolite products, the specialized fiber products, the ACS, and many of the other unique products that are available only from Longevity Plus. But he gives you here a little way to find out, is your child having outbursts of irrational frustration and anger? Yes. Is it going to warrant a diagnosis of some incredible doctor calling it manic and putting a child on antipsychotic medication for years? No. You need to learn that these symptoms go away when you do the F.I.G.H.T, and we're empowering you with tools, but the tools are not going to do it by themselves. You've got to do the sweating. You've got to do some of the exercise. You've got to do the dietary change, learn how to cook some new menus. These are a couple of pages out of the book, and I do like what the book is doing. It tries to tell you if you have severe allergies to some of these foods, it would be obvious, but a lot of it is not obvious, which is why having a couple of books, because as I repeat, Mark Hyman's incredibly good book is not going to be available for a month or so, but Dr. Hyman has a huge website, and you can learn so much at no cost without waiting for his incredible package for $149 of the diabetes, which I entirely endorse, the money being well spent. If you're diabetic, you are going to spend tons of money over your lifetime needlessly, and that's why $149 for his package, because he empowers you with this package to be able to take at least 40 pages of solid information about what tests to do and why to do them to any MD, and the MDs cannot ignore this because this is mainstream references right out of New England Journal, Lancet, JAMA, etc. So this is the reason to understand that my 2 diabetes webinars are to be played by you several times, because you have to learn the entire program if you're going to get the full benefit. But I was so happy to see in here that he not only has these great DVDs, but he has written in here a whole chapter to give to your doctor, who's going to sit there and say, well, I never heard of doing the insulin, both fasting and as part of the glucose tolerance. Your doctor is not up on this, and your doctor is behind it, and he doesn't know. If you ask any doctor practicing in America today, have you cured diabetes? Cured diabetes so that all of the tests come back normal? They're going to say they have not done so. Mark's done between 1 and 2,000 that have been cured, but this is not an easy program. I'm not claiming that, because it's tying everything together. So he has good book, The Ultramind Solution, has really good suggestions in there, and he ties it again to the need to detoxify. And so this is just page 373 out of his book, and I'm only putting it in front of you to have you see that the cruciferous vegetables, the cabbage, broccoli, colored, Brussels sprouts, the Chinese cabbage, bok choy, arugula, all of these are actually foods that have tremendous ability to help you detox, as well as any food that has got curry with the yellow color, the turmeric, the curcumin is very powerful stuff. And green tea. The more you're going to read about green tea, the more we're going to cause a shortage worldwide. But bottom line, all they did is catch the tea before they had to ferment it to turn black. So there's not going to be a shortage. But understand, green tea provably is doing fantastic things. You might need 5 cups for a man, 3 cups for a woman. But anyhow, what about sulfur? Well, sulfur is part of what I C is such a huge problem that when I call bioenergy C, the unique vitamin C only available at longevity, it is a vitamin C delivery system, but there we use methylsulfonomethane, which is tied in a sense to DMSO, but it does incredible things to make the vitamin C delivered to where you need it in your body. So across the board, we need to make sure that you see that N-acetylcysteine is in the health food store, and it is going to do many things that you otherwise could do with intravenous glutathione if you have Parkinson's. But let's just understand, N-acetylcysteine is a safe amino acid in 500 milligrams twice a day, and get it at a health food store in milk thistle. These are really simple things you can do to make your liver more happy. And then look at temperature. We've got to raise the temperature. Hyperthermia is treating cancer. And you can't feel good unless you're sweating, because the skin is able, it's an organ of excretion. It's more powerful than the kidney for handling mercury. So get to some gym and do some saunas and drink a lot of water when you're in that. I'd be there and really soak a lot of sweat out of your body, but keep putting the water in so that all these toxins are going out, but do it with the zeolite and the fiber and the high-dose C and the beyond chelation, and try to get the green and try to put in your body the maca, and across the board understand that all of these pieces fit together. The China study, no one can tear apart the credentials of T. Colin Campbell, Ph.D. His study is huge, and it is hard for anybody to believe. And I'm from Wisconsin, the dairy state, and he shows you that the current time, the dairy, I have used a conservative figure saying 40% of people are not going to reach their intended lifespan because they're eating dairy. He makes it look much higher than that, way beyond the lactose problem. The lactase is just the tip of the iceberg for what he's concerned about. But I'm bringing to your attention that it has a lot to do with what we are feeding animals. We've turned the world topsy-turvy by making this country subsidize the industry that puts the corn and that puts the wheat and the soy out there. So this fluoride deception is just so that you're aware when your kids are brushing their teeth with fluoride, you are going to induce problems in the body. They have lied to everybody, and fluorinated water is a major toxin. So understand that I send everybody to pick additional iodine in the beyond chelation improved. You're getting kelp, you're getting iodine, but because you have so much bromine in drinks that like Mountain Dew that are just absolutely poison for people, bromine, fluorine actually negatively impact the human body, and iodine is one answer. So make sure that you learn about how important iodine supplementation is and buy some and be on it daily. Now, the calcium story has been so oversold in our country. We won't dwell on this other than to say that when people are 80 years of age, the artery has 140 times too much calcium unless you're on the product called Beyond Bone, and only Beyond Bone has the whole thing worked out. So you've got the K2 and all the other things at this moment that taking it with the Beyond Chelation, you can wind up at age 90 with hard bones and soft arteries, but only if you understand that they've lied to the public, telling everybody, take and swallow tons of calcium. It's the answer to your bones. It is not the answer. Only exercise and vitamin K and vitamin D and getting the magnesium and putting some strontium in your body. There's a whole lot of things that we do. And, of course, if you're postmenopausal, you need to know about Pueraria mirifica. There's a webinar about this being the ultimate form of the bioidentical hormone replacement, because it does the following: stops the menopause symptoms, stops the bone loss, stops the vaginal dryness, helps restore normal sleep, helps get rid of much of the depression. So HRT, which stands for Herbal Remedy from Thailand, is part of the answer, not swallowing 1,000, 2,000 milligrams of calcium. This is the book that you will want to go out and buy. It's actually an updated version of a book that's already been out for 3 years, but Dr. Servan Schreiber, MD, PhD, has some 16 years ago been diagnosed with a brain tumor. He has done his work in this book. The references will get you excited that you will know which foods actually help your body get rid of cancer. And some of it came out of a study on just an individual patient facing death with pancreatic cancer who learned which foods he couldn't touch and which foods he should do, and he lived 4.5 years. Most patients with a fulminant, aggressive pancreatic cancer are dead well before 6 months. So when your doctor says, oh, diet's got nothing to do with it, please find another doctor, or if you really like him, ask him to join my forum on anti-aging and chelation therapy, F.I.G.H.T, and put in the word cancer, because he'll be overwhelmed with what he never knew, because what I do is pick it out of New England. I pick it out of all of the Lancet. I pick these articles out, but I have it all in one place, and it's over, because he's busy reading other things he's never known, that we now know how, provably, to make colon cancer, lung cancer patients live at least 5 times longer, minimum, than what mainstream medicine can do for you. Sam Epstein is University of Chicago, a good friend of mine. He is one of the first ones to blow the whistle on the chemical industry. Suzanne Summers has really done incredible. Go to SuzanneSummers.com and see when she stands up with 2 of my favorite doctors on the program, to 2 oncologists on Larry King Live, and puts those 2 mainstream oncologists who continue to tell everybody that all this is quackery, when in fact Dr. Brzezinski is on the program, as is the doctor treating pancreatic carcinoma, Nicholas Gonzalez. These 2 doctors on the program with Larry King. You watch on SuzanneSummers.com website, and you'll see how corrupt the cancer establishment is. This is the good news. Even positive thoughts can help change the genes, because I can tell you that I have everybody on Beyond B12 because you need the right kinds of folic acid, and I have everybody on the Bioenergy C because you need the methylsulfonomethane. You need these things, but they're expensive, and we can't all afford everything. So it's really nice to have something here that shows you that your beliefs, feelings, and attitudes will turn genes on and turn genes off. And I've tried to explain previously under the G that we have our genetics for methylation being turned off by the bisphenol A that other countries like Canada have banned, but our FDA was trying to pretend it's totally safe, and yet we can fight back with positive thoughts and learning how to meditate. And so this is exciting news. This book is from a gentleman, Dolly Reuben Gilmore, and he worked with one of my top mentors, Dr. Abraham Mentor, Dr. Abraham Hoffer. My other mentors include Dr. Sharaskin, Dr. Linus Pauling, Dr. Roger Williams, and across the board, this book will give you hope, it'll make you laugh, and you won't send your kid to some incredible child psychiatrist who's going to treat a disease he doesn't have. This book is well referenced. Much of the work I could not have done it without a year to do what's in this book. So please understand, it has a lot to do with why we like the E3MB, because we've got to put good stuff in your child every day while we help take the bad stuff out. Here's the good stuff we can put in your family. It's a wafer taken twice a day. Go to the website Longevity Plus, and next to this product there's the Fox News special and a PBS special. Click on it and you will see how the worst performing school in Leavenworth, Kansas, with violence in children who were never going on to any kind of career, in 2 years totally turned around. So I mentioned that we can change the genes with the nutrients, and I mentioned the Beyond B12, and I mentioned the methylsulfonomethane and the dimethylglycine that's in the vitamin C. But I want you to know that now I've shown you epigenetics, and we know that we can change things for the better. But across the board, we continue to have the negative effects of these plastic additives that are in all of us. So Beyond Chelation Improved is my calling card. Remember, there has not been a reported fatal heart attack or fatal stroke. in over 20 years in anybody taking these 9 pills twice a day. So for some people, this is the ultimate because the yellow pills give you a multiple. The oil capsule, one is the primrose that balances out the omega-3. The 3 on the right-hand side are where we spent $10 million on essential daily defense that you can buy by themselves and open one capsule and give to any child in their daily food to get some of the toxins out. But we went way beyond, and these 3 pills actually replace Coumadin in people who are on various drugs to prevent blood clotting, even aspirin. And the one in the bottom left-hand corner is phosphatidylserine and ginkgo, because when you're 90, I want you to remember my name and my phone number. So we put it in now, so keep you seeing and thinking. Curing the incurable is important because none of you fully appreciate that if you did nothing else that we've talked about but changed the diet and took some C, there's miracles. The 1,200 scientific references will show that you can treat the infections and the toxins. The vitamin C story will tell you it is not a vitamin, it is a nutrient, so you'll stop thinking that 10 grams a day is a big dose. It is what a goat makes when it's under any kind of stress, and most of you are under stress. Bioenergy C is what we're talking about. Beyond Fiber is what will support the right kind of healthy flora. Zeogold is the breakthrough that the world needs because this will help deal with toxins that even chelation and fiber and high-dose C can't deal with, and I'm totally convinced that toxins are what makes it so hard for any of us to reach our maximum intended useful lifespan feeling great like we should. So the book Detox with Oral Chelation, the Omega-3 Miracle is in the bookstores. The BCI is your foundation, those 9 pills, because the 3 yellow are the strongest multivitamin that you could want and give you all the magnesium and all the cesium and rubidium that helps keep you alkaline. And the websites on these things, including Fight for Your Health, are designed to give you additional information. And the one that says on it, it says zeolite answer is to teach you that zeolite has been used on animals for many years and dramatically stops birth defects, as well as the need for the vet to come for infection. And it changes totally the body's use of ammonia. So that if you begin to see these websites, it's so that you understand that we are trying to be a source of information to help you, to help yourself. And we have a blog site where you go to Linda's Fight blog at linebook.com/fight. There you can just chime in and say, hey, I'm having trouble. I didn't understand what Dr. Gordon, he's talked too fast. And others will try to take your hand and explain to you how we can give you something to deal with the F, to deal with the I, to deal with the G, to deal with the H, and to deal with the T. I have a couple of questions that I want to answer from the audience. One is, what is the best alternative protocol for MS? If you need to go into great detail, if you have your physician join at no cost, my website, again, is FACT for the doctors. There I've pumped 10 pages out to go into it, but to keep it really simple, the alternative protocol for MS, we have taken a man that 20 years treated by mainstream doctors in New York City, wound up in the wheelchair. They threw in the towel, said they couldn't help him. They'd spent thousands of dollars. He was in a few months, 3 to be exact, back driving his car, doing everything. Big program for him was the Bioenergy C and the Beyond Chelation Improved and the Zeogold, and we had him visit one of the members of my academy, acam.org, and get some intravenous magnesium and get the intravenous vitamin C. Next question. I can't afford a water purifier yet. Is it best to drink bottled purified water spring even though it's in plastic? I know tap water is bad. Yeah, this is a really sad situation. Tap water is so bad. And so the thing is, the water purifier RO units through Costco, I think they're $200. There's a little problem installing them, but I do think that everybody has to somehow see if you can't share an RO unit with somebody else. I think it's really essential. At the current time, as much as I hate the phthalates from soft plastic bottles water is stored in. I've been lucky enough to be able to get a lot of the Pellegrino that comes from Italy in a green bottle. It's glass, and there are still one or two companies in America that bottle water that is healthy in glass. But it is tough. It's a tough choice, but there's so many bad things in water. If you have no choice, use the stuff that everybody else is drinking, but make up for it by improving other parts of your detoxification program. What should I use to get rid of large fibroids, 5 centimeters and smaller, accompanied by heavy bleeding? There is a special fibroid, Shona, S-H-O-N-A, Oslo, O-S-L-O, is a person that has got a website that teaches you about the diets for fibroids. And just like I explained a couple of seconds ago, there was a diet so beautifully described in the anti-cancer book, A New Way of Life, in which they took and researched every single report and took their friend who they knew was going to die in weeks, if not a couple of months, with pancreatic cancer, and he lived 4.5 months. So there are foods, and just to not shoot ourselves in the foot and use the wrong foot, this young lady has wound up putting together some really good videos, and if you don't find her name, it's something like Shola, S-H-O-L-A, Oslo. If you don't find that, please contact anybody at Longevity Plus.